For several years, Turkey and the UAE were not even on speaking terms after a series of regional disputes brought relations to an all-time low. But now, things seem to be moving, albeit slowly, in a more positive direction. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan recently spoke by phone with the UAE's de facto ruler, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed. The two leaders discussed a whole range of regional issues, and the call follows a visit by the Gulf state's national security advisor to Turkey just 2 weeks ago. The announcement by an Abu Dhabi conglomerate that it's looking to make investments in Turkey could also be a sign business might get back to normal. Trade between Turkey and the UAE was worth $8 billion last year, but analysts warn it's still too early to tell if things will return to a time when relations were empoisoned by conflicts like in Yemen and Libya. So is this a real thaw? Can both sides keep up the momentum? To answer that, joining me from Lake City, Florida, is Giorgio Cafiero. He is the CEO of Gulf State Analytics. And from Istanbul, Vehbi Baysan. He is a political analyst and an assistant professor at Ibn Khaldun University. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today. Vehbi, I'd like to start with you. The UAE and Turkey have been at odds over the past few years, especially over conflicts such as Syria and Libya and Yemen, also on Qatar's embargo. How significant is this phone call? What types of diplomatic steps will we see in the coming months?
I take it very seriously because let's remember in the last 10 years, if not more, Turkey-UAE relations were at a minimal level, at least on the surface. We cannot really talk about an important diplomatic relation. So this re-establishing links together at the highest level is quite promising, because before even Qatar's embargo, there were serious problems, and Qatar's embargo and Turkey's support to Qatar made it probably unhappy some Gulf states. So therefore, normalizing relations and re-establishing them is very, very important, and I'm very optimistic about it.
Giorgio, what does this new, less hostile environment mean for the investments that countries want to make in each other, but also for the region more broadly?
Well, at this time, I think countries in the Middle East are dealing with the economic consequences of COVID-19. In the Gulf, there's also been the challenges of how to deal with low oil prices. And the view is that it's more profitable to pursue foreign policies that are geared more toward reconciliation rather than confrontation. We don't know quite yet where in the Turkish economy this investment from the UAE is going to come. But like my colleague in Turkey, I'm very optimistic that the warming of relations between Ankara and Abu Dhabi can pave the path for more investment in Turkey. And I think what we're going to see across the region, hopefully, is more countries that have had some ideological tensions in the past trying to put aside those tensions. We can't eliminate those tensions, but maybe put them aside and focus more on economic integration throughout the region. And that would be very important from the standpoint of promoting peace and stability in the Middle East.
Right. Vehbi, this could be a sign of easing tensions, but at the same time, a lot of differences still remain. There isn't a lasting political solution in either Yemen and Libya, where Ankara and Abu Dhabi are openly supporting opposing sides. How fragile is this rapprochement? Could one crisis have the potential to derail everything?
Well, indeed, but I think the will what matters. So now we see that at the highest level, this phone call will be followed up more relations, diplomatic relations, and further cooperation in the Middle East, because Turkey can contribute quite significantly in the projects there, and especially for the success of the Abraham Accords signed between Israel and the Gulf states. So therefore, I'm saying it is fragile, no doubt about it. But Libya sort of fading away from dominating the politics between the two countries, and Yemen wasn't that really, a part of a challenge between the two countries. And Syria, previously, yes, it was. between 2012 and 13. But it seems now they are leaving behind all these differences and investing in more cooperative relations between the two countries. Therefore, the visitor we had from the UAE, personally coming to Ankara and meeting high-level officials, were quite a significant step. Therefore, this phone call between the two presidents or the emirs and Mr. Erdogan was quite positive. I think it's a good step.
Giorgio, one question on the US. How much of this shifting directions do you think it has to do with who sits in the White House right now? I mean, does Joe Biden and his policy have anything to do with this?
Yes, this is definitely not 100% about the United States, but there's no denying that the transition from Trump to Biden has been a really important variable in the equation. When Trump was president, the White House was, giving full support to Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh and Mohammed bin Zayed in Abu Dhabi. It was uncritical, unconditional support, it seemed. Now in Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, there's a view that the new U.S. president, Joe Biden, is not going to unconditionally support Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And there have been concerns about some possible friction between those two Gulf states and the U.S. during the post-Trump period. And these dynamics have incentivized UAE to try and reconcile with certain countries in the region, probably the most important case being Turkey right now.
Right. Vehbi, I mean, George has touched on Riyadh as well and Abu Dhabi. What about recent events in Afghanistan? Could they help change relations in the Middle East even further? And if yes, in what direction?
Well, now Afghanistan, no one knows. It's like the Pandora's boxes. So we don't really. I mean, we can only guess. But what kind of effects the Afghan situation will have in terms of politics and economic relations in the Middle East, and especially Turkey? I'm underlining this because Gulf states, especially, they're trying to keep their distance from Taliban. But we also should mention that starting in 2018, there were negotiations in Doha with the Taliban representatives and the officials in the Gulf. So they were trying to understand and find a common ground for the differences in Afghanistan. But the situation changed now. But I think, again, in order to come up with a positive or politics in Afghanistan, I think cooperation between Gulf states, Turkey, and the other Middle Eastern countries will play quite a good role. And therefore, as I said, that I'm very optimistic about it. And because, I mean, having differences and having no relations certainly will not have no benefit to any country.
Right, Giorgio, you've touched on this a few minutes ago. We've seen a COVID-19 pandemic hitting the Gulf state economy quite significantly, and underscoring its links to global trade. I mean, is this why you think the country is moving away from a strategy of more robust military intervention to a policy that includes more economic diplomacy, or are there other reasons too?
I think that's a really big reason. The Emiratis were very bold, especially when we saw Abu Dhabi's foreign policy in Libya beginning a number of years ago. It's very expensive kind of foreign policy, very costly. So I think the UAE and other Gulf states are trying to find ways to conduct the foreign policy that is less costly and takes into account the new dynamics created internationally by the COVID crisis. And I think it's within this context, yes, that Abu Dhabi is trying to engage in a bit more of a diplomatic foreign policy. I also don't want to overstate the changes that are going on. The UAE's leadership is very opposed to political Islam. I think sometimes people exaggerate how important the Muslim Brotherhood is to Turkey's foreign policy. But at the end of the day, Ankara does have a Muslim Brotherhood-friendly foreign policy. The leadership in Abu Dhabi and Ankara still see many issues in the region very differently, and how quickly or how easily these two countries can mend their ties, I think, remains to be seen. Definitely some sensitive files need to be discussed further. But again, as you point out, there are these new dynamics in terms of the global economy that seems to be pushing UAE in a little bit more of a diplomatic direction right now.
Right, Vehbi, one last question on Saudi Arabia. I mean, the larger fish when we speak about the financial landscape of the Gulf region. Foreign Minister Cavusoglu paid a recent visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to discuss bilateral relations. How optimistic are you of Turkey and Saudi also reducing tensions?
Well, actually, a very significant step. I mean, Cavusoglu's visit to Saudi Arabia. I mean, what had happened, obviously, in Istanbul, that Khashoggi's, let's call, disappearance, and we know further details and awful ones, was kind of unacceptable because it happened in Istanbul. But let's remember, even King Salman also had a phone call with Mr. Erdogan to sort the differences out. But obviously, it wasn't an easy situation between the two countries. Now, the trade volume between the two countries significantly was reduced in the past several years. Now it seems that they're putting behind all the differences and policies and probably work together. And I think, again, and also it seems that probably a further higher level visit may follow up this one. So as I said, again, any step is better than having nothing.
Unfortunately, we'll have to end it there. Giorgio, Vehbi, thank you very much for your contribution today.